I said last week we were looking to recover quickly from a pretty big downturn, and we did exactly that. We had 4 cards last weekend, and every single one ended in profit, returning over 18 units on Friday and Saturday. We started off the weekend with April's monthly bonus, but since we didn't do much losing in April, that didn't even add half a unit to the bankroll. Then we had PFL MENA, where only one MMA fight ended up taking place on that card. We did cash that one for a 1 unit return. Later Friday night, we had LFA 208. We went 3 for 5 on that card and returned 2.5 units. We kicked off Saturday with PFL Belfast, where we went 4 for 4 on predictions there and made a profit of 4.5 units. Finally, we closed out the weekend with UFC 315. The models correctly predicted 10 of those 12 fights, and we made a profit of 11.7 units, ending our weekend plus 18.7 units. Before we get into this week's predictions, I want to run some preliminary numbers for Islam versus JDM. So if you guys will let me know down in the comments when you think that fight would take place, I'll use the date that y'all come up with and run some numbers for you a little bit early so that you can get early lines on that fight if you'd like. We're starting off this card in the women's strawweight division with a bout between Luana Pinheiro and Tisha Pennington. Despite the stats showing that Tisha lags behind in every notable metric, being 4 years older, she's 3 inches shorter, and she's giving up an inch in reach, she's still a minus 400 favorite at the books. Neither version of the model agrees with this. V1's got Pinheiro winning at a 64% clip, and V2 is very close to that at 66.72%. Because both models agree on Pinheiro here, we will be betting 1.5 units on her at plus 300. Next up, at men's flyweight, we have Hyun Sung Park versus Carlos Hernandez. Carlos does have the advantage in both height and reach here, but neither of them are very substantial. What is notable is that Park has been away for a significant amount of time at 525 days. He suffered a knee injury nearly a year ago that kept him out for quite some time, and then in February of this year, his opponent pulled out in the last minute due to weight cut issues. Park is still undefeated, but I guess the models are realizing that in 2025, undefeated doesn't mean a whole lot. They both favor Carlos Hernandez very slightly, and he isn't that big of an underdog at the books at plus 130. We will be placing 1.5 units on Hernandez here. Back to strawweight for a bout between Elise Reed and Denise Gomez. The only things of note that I see here is a 7-year age gap and Gomez's ability to finish a fight. Other than that, everything seems super close, but the book odds are extremely wide, with Denise favored at minus 500. Both versions of the model are on board with that. They're right around 70% chance of victory for her, so we'll be taking Denise Gomez for 7.5 units. Staying in the women's divisions, this time at bantamweight, we have a matchup between Tainara Lisboa and Luana Santos. Lisboa's been away from the sport for 580 days, and I just can't figure out why. She was on a 2-0 run in the UFC before taking that break, and she's looking to keep it alive when she comes back. Luana's last fight was a loss that snapped a 5-fight winning streak, and the bookmakers, as well as both models, expect her to get it back on track on Saturday. She's a minus 135 favorite at the books, and we'll be placing 2.03 units on her to win this fight. Our next fight is a featherweight matchup between Yadir Del Valle and Connor Matthews. Yadir is still undefeated. This will be his promotional debut coming off of a Contender Series win. Connor Matthews, on the other hand, has gone 0-2 since winning on the Contender Series, and he's been knocked out in both of those fights. On top of that, he's making a pretty quick turnaround at only 91 days, which might not be the best idea after suffering a first-round KO loss. Yadir is a sizable minus 430 favorite at the books, and both versions of the model agree with that quite heavily. V2 at 80% is quite a confident pick from that model. So we will be taking Yadir to win this fight for 6.44 units. We'll be moving up to lightweight for our next bout between Jared Gordon and Thiago Moises. Both of these guys are 8-6 in the UFC with very similar records outside of the promotion as well. Thiago's record does indicate that he's more of a finisher, and he's certainly got age on his side, being 6 years younger than Gordon. Despite this, the odds at the book are very, very close, with Thiago Moises just barely favored at -115. The two prediction models don't agree here, but V2 is quite confident in Moises at 63.65%. We'll be taking Moises in this fight and risking 1.15 units on it. It looks like we'll be closing out the prelims with another lightweight bout between Matthias Camillo and Gabe Green. Matthias is a newcomer coming out of the Korean Zombies promotion, and currently he's missing some data that I need to run predictions with him. So I'm going to try to dig that up, and if I can find that info, I'll post a short so you guys know where we are on that fight. The main card opener will be a featherweight bout between Melquizel Costa and Julian Erosa. Melquizel has been on an absolute tear recently. This is his third fight since the end of February, and he's currently on a 3-fight winning streak. Erosa is also making a quick turnaround at only 35 days. He won a fight against Darren Elkins at the beginning of April. Erosa does have an advantage in both height and reach, but the book odds, as well as both models, are leaning towards Costa here. We'll be taking Costa at -180 for 2.7 units. Up next, we'll be looking at a middleweight matchup between Dustin Stoltzfus and Nursultan Ruziboev. These guys are finishing machines. The two of them have only seen one decision apiece since 2020. Ruziboev does have a much more impressive looking record, especially in the UFC, where he's gone 3-1, while Stoltzfus has gone 3-5 in the promotion. Everything seems to be pointing Nursultan's way. He's a couple years younger, but nothing serious there. And he does have a pretty significant advantage in height, even though that only translates to 1 inch in reach. At the books, he's a -280 favorite, and both versions of the model agree that this is a likely outcome. We'll be betting Ruziboev in this fight for 4.2 units. The feature bout on this card is a lightweight matchup between Myron Santos and Sadiq Yusuf. Santos has won both of his fights in the UFC since coming off of the 32nd season of The Ultimate Fighter, but Sadiq will be a pretty big step up in competition for him. Yusuf is on a 2-fight losing streak right now, but all of his losses in the UFC have come to big names in the lightweight division. Sadiq has been away for more than a year since suffering a first-round TKO loss to Diego Lopez, and that may have given him time to regroup and recover, but the book doesn't believe that it's enough for him to win this fight. Santos is a pretty small -135 favorite here, and both versions of the model think much more highly of him than that, being between 60 and 70% confidence. We'll be taking Santos in this fight for 2.03 units. Our co-main event will take place at light heavyweight between Paul Craig and Rodolfo Bellato. Look at these guys' records. Between the two of them, they've only seen 3 decisions in 2 pretty long careers. Paul Craig hasn't been doing so hot lately. He's lost 5 of his last 6, and pretty much everybody here is just straight counting him out. He's a +400 at the books, and neither of the models are giving him better than 40% chance of victory. We'll be taking Bellato here for 8.24 units. I think regardless of who wins this fight, though, we shouldn't expect this one to go the distance. Finally, we'll be closing out the night at welterweight with a matchup between Michael Morales and Gilbert Burns. This bout was originally scheduled to happen last week. I'm not sure why it was pushed back, but if you know, please let me know in the comments below. Morales is still undefeated at 17-0, and this would be an expensive one to lose, so I'm really hoping that 2025 doesn't do its thing in this fight. I've got a good amount of hope in that because Gilbert's currently on a 3-fight skid and hasn't cashed a victory since 2023. The age discrepancy in this fight is huge. It's 13 years, with Gilbert being 38 now. He'll also be giving up a couple inches in height and a massive 8 inches in reach. They've both been away for quite a while, at around 9 months, but I wasn't able to find notes of any injuries or anything like that that would have caused such a long layoff. At the books, Morales is a very large minus 825 favorite, and both versions of the model are very heavy on him at nearly 69% and 77% for V2. Like I said before, this is a very expensive fight for us. We'll be putting 12.36 units on Michael Morales to close out the night for us. The models were able to generate predictions on 11 of the 12 fights on this card. Of those, it prefers 9 favorites and 2 underdogs. And with all but one of those being confident picks, it turned out to be a very expensive night. We're risking 49.64% of our bankroll for a potential gain just shy of 20 units and only a 39% ROI. There's a lot of risk involved in this card, but the models have proven time and time again that in the long run, they make money. So our best course of action is to bet when it says bet, clinch tight, and watch the fights. There's no other major organizations with fight cards this weekend, so this will be the only predictions that we make. I am going to see if I can pull enough information to round out this card with one last fight. If I do, I'll post it up as soon as possible. Thanks again for watching. Good luck on all your bets this weekend.